You're listening to Our Daily Show with CJ Nasello on RiverBender.com. The time on a Wednesday morning. It's the 20th day of September. Cindy Reinhardt in studio with me from the Madison County Historical Society, historian and author, and you are busy.
Yes, I am.
So take me through this, Cindy. This is really cool. So we were talking last week about this family history walk, which is coming up this Saturday, September the 23rd from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. in Edwardsville. And this is a really involved event with so many different stops and ways that we can all learn something about who we are in our community.
Yes, the focus is on Main Street, but you've got historic reenactors that really cover the whole state. There's Governor Coles, who was one of the early governors of the state and is credited with keeping Illinois a free state.
Wow.
There's a woman at 606 North Main Street who is going to be portraying the family that lived in that house in the late 1880s and in 1890s, and her husband was the principal at Lincoln School, at the black school in Edwardsville, and they are the ones that made the house look the way it does today, because the house started out as a two-room building, then became a little bit larger and was a school. The lady that lived there was a school teacher, and she took in students.
Wow.
Then it became the property of the Gillespie family, which during their tenure in the house, Abraham Lincoln came to visit. And we know this because Matthew Gillespie's brother was a good friend of Mr. Lincoln. And when Lincoln came to visit, the Gillespie that he would have visited, Mrs. Gillespie was pregnant at the time. And of course, that would not have been seemly. So he went to Matthew Gillespie's house instead, which is 606 North Main.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, that's truly incredible.
Yes. It's one of the few places where we've got documentation, and it's said that he bumped his head on the way into the dining room. But we also know that the dining room today was not the dining room back there. So we're not real sure which doorway it was.
But one of them.
But one of them, yes.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
And are there some other spots that you can talk to us about on this this tour that we can go and visit for ourselves?
Yes, at the warehouse, which is our museum building, there's going to be a portrayal of Dr. John Weir, who built the house in 1836. And also outside on the grounds, there will be a play with Ninian Edwards. And then we'll have a formerly enslaved person and an indigenous person. So Ninian, in the play, Ninian is bragging about all of the things that he did for this country. And the other players are coming forward and saying, well, wait a minute, because he wasn't so good to them.
Right.
Yeah. And he's a very controversial figure in history, and we feel that this is a way to portray all the sides of him. The play is written by Jeff Scoblow. He's a retired English language and literature professor at SIUE, and I think he did a terrific job with it.
Well, and this just seems like such a really unique, really a unique event, because it's more of a hands-on and really a really in-depth look firsthand on how, we acted as a society, some of the historical spots, the people, but also for the kids and even for the adults. I learn a lot more from, this type of setting than reading from a book sometimes.
Yeah, on the south end, we have a gentleman that portrays Benaiah Robinson, who was the county surveyor in 1840. So he surveyed a lot of this county. And the gentleman portraying him is Jeff Paulk. And Jeff is a second-generation surveyor who is on our board and has a very strong interest in history. And he, has the chains there, and he shows you how they used to measure. And they were remarkably close without GPS or anything to guide them, just with these chains and measures and compasses and that sort of thing.
It's just incredible. I mean, that alone, to me, it's, things that I take for granted today, because you can see the surveyors with their equipment on the side of the road, doing the measurements. But I couldn't even imagine, how much, precision and dedication and then just focus you'd have to make sure you're doing it right.
Oh, I know. It was an incredibly challenging job. I mean, it still is today.
Right, absolutely.
What do you do when there's a hill,
Good answer. I don't know.
Jeff knows.
That's right. Well, and for your aspect of this, what for you gets you most excited, most interest piqued whenever you see some of these spots? Is there one location in particular that you're really excited to kind of go back and just, even though I'm sure you know all the story and history, but just to get that kind of tidbit information and up close experience?
Well, in my case, I've written about a lot of them, so I already know them, and in fact, I'm portraying one of them.
Right.
And the one that I'm going to be doing this time is a woman named Cleo Faircobb, and she'll be at the Wildey Theater. And the reason I chose her is the Faircobbs were very much involved in the Wildey for decades. They were the projectionists, sometimes the manager. And Cleo's husband was one of the projectionists. They worked part-time, and when he worked, she also did. They had a little girl who grew up to be Joan Evers. Many in Edwardsville knew Joan. And before her death, she was considered the Wildey historian. And it's because her parents would both be going to work. She was an only child, so they brought her to work with them. So she saw all the movies. And I think her mother probably started working there during the war when there was a shortage of people that could work, because Cleo and her husband had a print shop just around the corner. But Ed Faircobb always kept his hand in as a projectionist. And there was a theater in Wood River that was owned by the same company, so they would kind of rotate the Faircobb boys around to the different theaters.
That's really unique. And what I think is just so cool about this is just the fact that, it's one of these things where we aren't, we can go at our own pace, correct? Where I'm not going just
exactly.
in a line. We can pick and decide for ourselves. And this is what I think is so fun. It makes it so interactive.
The times are staggered so that they start earliest on the south end, and you can work your way to the north end and hit them all. You can drive it if you'd rather not walk it. You can just go to what you think will be your favorites. There's all kinds of variety of options there.
And now take me through how this event got started, because this was a pretty long-standing one for a while, and then COVID kind of came into play, correct? How did that go?
Well, they actually did this. I wasn't involved then, but I think it was for like 10, 15 years where it was a certain grade. I think it was second grade, but then changed to a different grade later. They would walk from Columbus School and do a field trip where they went down Main Street and met different people on Main Street that were from the past. When the schools stopped doing field trips, and I think part of it was busing, part of it was the cost of busing,
yes,
and also liability, that sort of thing. So they stopped doing it. And then after COVID, Jeff Pauk had always been involved in the one with the grade schools, and he suggested that we bring it back only for families. And so that's what we did. Last year was the first year. We had very good participation, and so we're doing it again this year.
I love it. I think this is such a great thing. And then what I also like, too, is it's so fascinating that we have such a rich history, not only in Alton, Edwardsville, Granite,
all over Madison County.
All over.
Incredibly. I've written hundreds and hundreds of stories, and I mean, there's thousands and thousands more to be told. So we're always looking for different stories to tell with our newsletters or through activities like this.
Well, and too, I keep up with the some of the pictures that I see online and some of the articles and database entries, and I just find it all so fascinating. And maybe other communities go, well, we have a rich history to our other counties, but it really does seem like Madison County has a lot to talk about and a lot to learn from still.
It does. And part of it is because we were such a crossroads. They talk about St. Louis being a crossroads, but you had to come through Madison County to get there.
Right.
So, we had the River Road, the National Road, the Mother Road, Route 66, and then it was a hub of railroads, so all different railroad lines that went through here. And Alton was very early in getting railroads. That Alton-Springfield line was big.
Wow.
So there's just a tremendous amount of history there. It's never ending.
And now I got to ask you the run-of-the-mill question I'm sure you heard. Is it one of those, after the more stories you write, the more you realize there's still a lot more to learn?
Well, I can tell you the more that you write, the more you forget because
Yeah, the good answer.
I think your brain just gets on overload.
You're right.
Yeah.
Do you have a moment to stick around? I got to pay a quick bill, and I want to
Sure.
keep talking about Family History Walk coming up on September the 23rd, where reenactors are bringing local history to life on Main Street in Edwardsville. I'm really excited about this, and I'm excited to keep this conversation going after a quick one in downtown Alton.
Here at Modified Auto Sound, we are an automotive customizing shop that specializes in car audio, window tinting, and other truck and Jeep accessories. So as an interested customer, we always recommend that you just stop in the shop. Check us out at 241 Eastgate Plaza, right off of Route 3 in East Alton, Illinois. At Modified Auto Sound, there's no such thing as strangers, just friends we haven't met.
Macias Insurance Agency, providing quality products with extremely competitive prices. As an independent provider, we source multiple companies to offer the best rates possible, covering auto, home, business, and life insurance. Our goal is to provide quality service that meets and exceeds customer expectations. You can rest easy knowing the Macias team is working round the clock to ensure that both you and the most important parts of your life are covered. Our qualified professionals make the insurance process easy so you can live carefree and focus on what matters most. Visit MaciasInsuranceAgency.com today to find out what our team can do for you. For the biggest selection of pre-owned cars, trucks, and SUVs in the Riverbend, visit AltonToyota.com or stop by their location on the Homer Adams Parkway in Alton. Winner of the prestigious President's Award, Munganast Burkhardt Alton Toyota knows how to treat their customers, and they will help you find the vehicle that is perfect for you. For years, Munganast Toyota has been a fixture in the Riverbend, and now Munganast Burkhardt carries the tradition. New name, but the same great service you've come to expect.
I set the thermostat so my house would be warm when I got home from work, but the kitchen is still cool.
At Barrett Heating and Cooling, we stand behind every Linux system we sell.
My dealer said he'd take care of everything.
At Barrett Heating and Cooling, we understand everyone wants prompt, professional service.
Turns out it wasn't my furnace after all, just a little something blocking the vent.
Pretty smart dog if you ask me. For service you can count on, call Barrett Heating and Cooling.
Lennox. Innovation never felt so good.
Has free checking become a thing of the past? Not if Liberty has anything to say about it. With 3 free personal checking options and even a free business checking account, Free is alive and well at Liberty Bank, the local bank that gives you free checking choices and more cashing in your pocket. Bank locally, bank Liberty. For more information, visit www.bankliberty.com.
You're listening to Our Daily Show with CJ Nasello on RiverBender.com.
At 10:16, our conversation continuing with Cindy Reinhardt, historian and author with the Madison County Historical Society. Reenactors are bringing local history to life coming up on September the 23rd, a Saturday in Edwardsville, Illinois from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And this is really cool. This is the Family History Walk that Madison County Historical Society puts on. And listen to this. So you guys can take stops along the following, locations like the Madison County Courthouse with performances at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., and noon, and the Wildey Theater at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., and noon. Following that, head on over to the Bates Home. I always get that. Every time I see the Bates Home, I always want to say hotel, and that's just because I'm too much of a movie watcher, The Bates Home at 606 North Main Street with performances at noon, 1 p.m., and 2 p.m., and the Madison County Historical Society Plaza, 801 North Main Street with performances at 11 a.m., noon, and 1 p.m. And this is a play about Governor Ninian Edwards, correct? Mm-hmm. Did I say his name right?
Ninian.
So serious. I always get nervous because I always think that I'm going to botch something in the interview, and then I ruin it for everybody. I'm doing good so far.
No, you're doing fine.
And then the warehouse is the museum location for the Historical Society, correct? And then performances there at 2 p.m., 3 p.m., and 4 p.m. And then the last one, Historic Lincoln School at 2 p.m., 3 p.m., and 4 p.m. But there's one we haven't talked about yet. But before we do that, I think it's cool how you stagger these, because you mentioned that earlier, where we can all have moments and opportunities to get to places and not worry about missing one or getting to the other.
Exactly.
Really cool. So take me to the Wabash Hotel. What can we expect there?
Well, the Wabash Hotel dates back pre-Civil War, and it was like a T-shaped building, had another building onto the back. That part of it is gone, and that was the restaurant, and that was where Abraham Lincoln had a meal. So
Wow.
in the area behind the Wabash Hotel, Lincoln walked. But in the front part of it, that was turned into apartments and into a hotel, and has been for many years. And the Ladd family, Mr. Ladd was a coal miner, and his wife, they lived at the Wabash Hotel. And they were an immigrant family, and there'll be reenactors telling their story. The Ladds became... they had a very large family. There were a couple branches of the family. And what's interesting to me is I believe it was 1920 or so, they decided that their name had to be changed. It was HLAD. And the story goes that no one could find them in the telephone directories when telephones came. They were most of them were contractors or plasterers, did other work, and so they changed the spelling of their name so that today it's LADD.
Really? Now that's very interesting. And when they came, was it one of those things? Was their name always spelled with an H, and was it an issue whenever they came into Ellis
Yeah,
Island?
that was the original spelling. Was HLAD.
Okay, I did because
and so the family, as a group, decided. There was actually a notice in the newspaper that said, this one, it named all of the people that were changing their name from HLAD to LADD.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. And it's not like today where you can just kind of use Google as your friend and, get a suggestion or two. You can't find them, and they needed to work.
Yes.
So fascinating. And now, was there any, out of all these groups, out of all these performances and, interpretations of the original resident, is there one person, we kind of hinted on this earlier, that just kind of had this story that really should be told time and time again? I mean, all of them should, but for you, is there one person that just, you're going, we got to talk about this?
Well, I mean, there's some that I think Governor Cole's story is an important one.
Yeah.
And that I think that should be taught in history classes across the country. Mm-hmm. Of course, Ninian Edwards has the controversial story.
Right.
And he was a national figure and was of importance, but especially by today's standards, he did a lot of things wrong.
Right.
And that needs to be recognized, that he's not an unblemished hero.
Right.
Many would say not a hero at all. Mm-hmm. So those two, I think, are important on a national scale. But locally, Dr. Weir.
That's a good one.
He was very important. He was an abolitionist as well as a physician. He often was sent for to come up to the prison during the Civil War. Mm-hmm. And his house that he built in 1836 stayed in his family until 1963, when it was purchased by the Historical Society. So there's only been the Weir family and the Madison County Historical Society were the only owners of that building since 1836.
That's actually incredible. That is.
It really is. You don't find that very often.
No. And I wanted to go real quick, Cindy, while I have you, is your Facebook page has some really cool stuff in it. And you always are doing something to either promote a historical event that somebody else is doing or what you guys are working on. But what I love, too, is seeing some of the older pictures and some of the things that are coming. Take us through this. So Madison County Historical Society is the name of the page, right?
That's correct.
And is that a good place for folks to kind of stay up to date on events, but also kind of get some tidbits of history as well?
You can do both. And we encourage people around the county, if they are with a historical society or a library that is having a program that is related to Madison County history, we want to help you promote that.
And I see a picture. I can't show it on screen here, but there was a photo of on the wall at Edwardsville Stagger Inn. And now, can you take us through this? What was this picture? Because I want people to go and check this out. This was...
Well, I'm not sure what the picture is, but they sent us... one of our members sent snapshots of the picture at Stagger and said, is this a CCC camp? Mm-hmm. And in particular, is it the one in Edwardsville? And so we did some research on it, and we posted a picture of the actual CCC camp.
Okay.
And one of the things that we found is that it's possible that it was the CCC camp in Edwardsville, but not likely. And the reason is that if you zoom in on that picture, you'll see that there's bright white trim around all the windows. And there was also a picture of it in the 1937 the 75th anniversary edition of the Intelligencer was an expanded edition. And it had a picture of it. And again, those white trimmed windows were prominent. But it could be that, on another side or before they painted the trim, so we can't say absolutely not. But it's highly unlikely.
That is, to me, would be such a fascinating part of what you guys do, is going and being the detective and saying, well, let's look and let's compare photos, let's compare dates. And I mean, that's so interesting.
Exactly. And we've got a librarian and a curator on staff, and you can ask them. They get as involved in these projects as the patrons that come in. Sometimes the patron leaves and we're going, I got to find that. You don't want to stop,
right?
But you have to, because there's somebody else coming in that needs to have their story researched. So, but they're extremely helpful to everyone that comes in.
And I wanted to ask you about that too, because I think there's so many of us that have questions about things that are in our family's history, our county's history, our town's history. Can they stop in and get answers or start the research with you?
Absolutely. Yes. And the great part about having county-wide resources is that a lot of people moved around the county.
Yep.
And so as they move from one town to another town, you've got those resources all in one spot. Now, of course, here in Alton, you've got Hainer Library, which is also a wonderful resource.
They do a great job at Genie. We were just talking about how great Lacey does. But it's a great team, too, where that, Lacey's doing a great job. You guys are doing a great job. And so many times I get this sense of maybe not fear or anxiety, but just going, how many communities aren't really keeping track of their history, of where they came from? Because that's so vital in the growth of a county, of a town, of a state.
What's really scary is there are a lot of people out there that collect history, but a lot of times when they pass on, it ends up in a dumpster somewhere.
Yeah.
And I encourage people to label your photographs, donate them to a public place.
Yep.
My example is my great-grandparents. They had 11 children. When they had a family portrait taken, they probably made maybe 12, 15 copies, some aunts and uncles, that sort of thing, right? Well, they've got well over 3,000 descendants. Oh. So everybody's not going to have that picture.
Right.
But if you have it in a public place in the area where they lived, it's always going to be available.
Yep, absolutely. And it's so important, and it tells everybody who we are and shows our story. And also, I use it as a way to learn from the past too, and looking how things were done and seeing the discussions, the discourse, and seeing how it kind of correlates. I always find that fascinating too to today's climate. With that being said, Cindy, I love talking to you. I told you 15 minutes and I kept you for almost 30. I apologize, but I'm excited for this. Family History Walk coming your way this Saturday, September the 23rd from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Main Street in Edwardsville.
That's right.
And now, should people get there any earlier, or is 10 a.m. just a perfect time to start?
Well, you should be at a location at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
At 10 o'clock, either at the Wildey or the surveying performance is going to be on the plaza at the courthouse, between the courthouse and the administration building. Mm-hmm. So one of those places. I would arrive a few minutes ahead.
5 to 10. 5 to 10 sounds good.
To start gathering,
And what's the best way for us to stay up to date ahead of Saturday and ahead of all the other great events that we'll be talking about soon?
The Facebook page that you mentioned. We also have a website, madcohistory.org. And we've got all of these events there. And you'll see posters around town and different flyers. And you've got our website up right now, and when you click on that, it'll take you to that schedule that shows you where to go for what.
That's awesome, and I'm really excited to talk more about this on October the 4th when you come back in, and we're going to be talking about peering into the past, paranormally, happening over at Mineral Springs, but we'll also be talking about this really cool Living History Days festival that I'm really excited about. So, Cindy, until the 4th of October, be well, and we'll see you then.
See you then.
We'll take a quick break. More of our daily show comes to you on a Wednesday in downtown Alton next.